So the truth is, nobody really knows. Nobody knows whether or not the supply is ever going to meet the demand. Nobody knows whether or not grey prices are going to continue to decline or steadily increase or remain the same. What has been fascinating though over the last few years is seeing the increased interest and also the steady decline of interest, of popularity of a handful of brands on this platform and the kinds of people that these watches are now attracting. It's a very different landscape to, let's say, 5-10 years ago, where watches were just watches. It was fun. I stumbled on a video a few days ago by our resident watch gringer, Britt Pierce, and it was so succinctly said, and she reflected exactly how I felt about this subject. Brilliant video, highly recommend. If you're watching Britt, fantastic job. And the subject was about how horology is being ruined by the fact that watches are now seen as investment opportunities, as things in people's portfolios, and no longer appreciated for just the joy, the art, the hobby. It's a different landscape altogether. That's an unfortunate reality that has been perpetuated by the last few years, where I believe a lot of people had disposable income that they could put into these watches. And now we're at a time where we're seeing Morgan Stanley reports on the returns of these objects, that 71% of the grey market's income is derived from Rolex, AP, and Patek Philippe sales. It's such a weird time that we're living in. And I think the root cause of this whole derailment has to do with miscommunication. The fact that these brands don't explain themselves or their trajectories. They keep their cards close to their chest, which allows for opportunistic capitalists to jump in and basically, decide to dictate the market the way they see fit. And since we've been seeing a process where supply has been virtually diminished to a point where brands aren't offering watches to anyone, and the demand for these pieces has increased thanks to people like me who talk about the subject and social media in general, Instagram is a great place. We have seen a surge of increased popularity for watches that these brands simply cannot meet. So the net result is that the grey market is a world to itself, and they can pretty much dictate and choose the prices that they want to offer. Over the past few years, the saying, what goes up must come down, seems to be ringing true, because watches reached their peak in price a few months back and have slowly but surely been declining ever since. And this is in part due to other things, and it shows us, and we can see just how unpredictable this platform is. A guilty pleasure of mine in the background has been to watch videos about subjects linking with watches and the grey market. And the take-home from the experience that I've at least seen is that you buy a watch with box and papers, you put it in a safe, and your money is safe. The main aim of watch ownership with these brands, it's changed a lot. The focus is more about how much money you're going to get out of this in a few years' time. So let's say a decade ago, people weren't as frantic about modern watches that they are right now. And unfortunately, it is linked to the brands not being able to meet the demand, but it's also the grey market dictating the terms. They are a law unto themselves. With all of that said, let's talk about Rolex as a brand. I don't know if it's just me or if it's just what I've been seeing, but the interest in Rolex on this platform seems to be declining quite a bit. Look, it's not as popular as it was 3 years ago. The subject doesn't interest as many as it used to. And this can be linked to many different reasons. The fact that we cannot get these watches at retail unless we are very lucky. We get put on lists and our names may never come up. The exorbitant waiting times for these, we're talking years and years. The fact that every Joe has one at this point. And it could also be because in this sphere, this YouTube sphere, we have been quite educated over the last, say, half decade. And through it, we've learned that there are some great watches that are a third of the price but offer twice the value. Not monetary value per se, but value to us as collectors and what we love. And what Rolex seems to have done, inadvertently or not, over the last few years is factor out their original audience in favor of pushing the luxury image, in favor of trying to compete with a name like Patek Philippe. It's no doubt that Rolex is one of the most recognizable brands in the world, and they offer great quality watches, no one's disputing that. These watches have always costed a lot of money, and not everybody could afford them. And maybe that's also something else at play, that a large majority of the audience can afford a watch like this today, but the brand simply can't cope. The long and short of it is that everything combined impacts the way that the brand is viewed. And I think the impression that the brand leaves on people today is different to how it did 5-10 years ago. I'm in my 20s, and I can't justify owning a Rolex at this stage in my life. It's to do with the pleasure and the pain. Maybe I'm an exception because I'm too close to the subject. I talk about this stuff every week. But I keep asking myself, will the enjoyment actually be worth it? Because of everything I've covered, because it seems to have lost a special touch that it used to have back in the day. Because I feel largely outpriced and the watch is no longer targeted to me. Subconsciously, you're wearing a watch knowing that it's easily recognizable and you have eyes on it all the time. And even though it's not a part of the conversation, the watch on the secondary market's worth more than what you just bought it for. I'm sure these thoughts go through a lot of people's minds, and this could be another reason why so many are losing interest in wanting to own them in the first place. And adding to that, I'm sure a lot of people are interested in selling these watches for that reason too. It's almost too much of a burden to bear. Moving to the grey market and seeing this fluctuation of prices that has been going on, it's pretty surprising, especially considering that a lot of well-known resellers actually were offering these watches at discounts during Black Friday. Some of the most popular sports models. Now, we're not talking huge prices here. We're talking 5% off, 10% off, but it's a start. And this could be because Rolex is steadily increasing supply into their stores. And they're also in the process of opening a new manufacturing plant. Now, with all that said, the future of these watches, I don't think you have to worry too much. The prices of these watches at retail will slowly increase. There is strong hope that the brand is going to increase the supply of their most popular models into their stores, which will make the opportunities of getting them easier, which will in turn affect the grey market prices and help them steady out a bit more. Look, the bubble will never burst. The balloon will never deflate to a point where we are going to see these watches offered at retail and the grey market the way we did 10 years ago, where you could buy them at discount at retail. Those days are well and truly gone, unfortunately, but I do think we're going to see some neutralizing. We're going to get to a point where everything seems to plateau, flatline, and there'll be some normalcy. The sad thing is, we as enthusiasts, as collectors who want to buy these watches and enjoy them for what they are, not for what they're worth, are being suppressed by the people who are seeing them as stocks, as things to invest their money in. And no matter the brand, if it's a popular name, this will never change. Just see the auction results and you'll see that things are pretty consistent still. And it is a pity. If you're someone like me who got on the train pretty late, you will never be able to experience these watches for what they were. They are now seen very differently. Frankly, for someone like me, as a collector enthusiast who talks about this subject, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Ironically, it cheapens the experience. More than anything else, it doesn't feel like a luxury experience anymore. The customer doesn't come first. The fact that you have to beg and plead, it feels like a monopoly. My only hope is that in 10, 20 years' time, things change. But they never will change the way we think. The brand is a victim of their own success. No matter what they do, their popularity will continue to increase. And that's when a brand like Tudor steps in. Brilliantly made watches, amazing timekeepers, that are still available in store to purchase, that are offered to you at a fraction of the price, and capture the very quintessence of what Rolex as a brand used to be about, creating tool watches for the everyday person. And another saying I'll inject into this video, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Yes, these prices may fluctuate. Yes, supply and demand might finally equalize. But attention will move elsewhere. The popularity of these watches may dwindle, may fizzle away. But there is always going to be interest somewhere, and we will continue to speculate.